Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live on Casual Friday, it turns out, in Mackey Arena, where Purdue just defeated Nebraska 73-55. This is your wrap video. It is brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Club Hotel. Thank you to them, as always, for their promotional support of these silly little videos I do after all of these games. It is much appreciated, and with that being said, like a Notes app message from a recruit on Twitter, with that being said, we will discuss the game. I am so good at transitioning out of the live read into the basketball stuff. It's stunning, really, how good I am at that. So Purdue wins 73-55, as I already mentioned, but if I'm not repeating myself, then I don't know what I'm doing. So a couple weeks ago, I guess December, and I remember that because I was driving through Christmas decorations, a Christmas ensemble, if you will, looking for the media parking lot, literally driving through things that later in that evening would be lit up and cars would literally be driving through them like a car wash or something. Purdue went to overtime in Lincoln after being up as many as 14 points in the second half, and that was directly attributable to the fickle little SOB that is the three-point jump shot in basketball. As happens in basketball, more so nowadays than ever before, if a good shooting team shoots bad and a bad shooting team shoots good, weird things happen. If a bad shooting team just shoots good for the right 5 or 6 minutes at a time, a game just gets flipped on its side. Purdue shot bad in that game, shot poorly. Sorry, I'm using terrible English here. I'm butchering our fine language. Nebraska, is not a great shooting team. They're not as bad as they've been at times before, but they're not great. They went on a run there where Tominaga is just throwing the ball in from like Iowa, and crazy stuff happened. And the game all of a sudden turns on its side. Purdue damn near loses that game just because the moodiness of the three-pointer leaned heavily for a while in Nebraska's favor and heavily against Purdue. And so that game goes to overtime. Purdue ends up surviving in every sense of the term. This game represented Purdue simply flipping the script. Finally, for the first time this season, and they've had a lot of opportunities, Purdue comes out making threes. And it's only been a matter of time, if you ask me, before Purdue started making threes to open games. And Fletcher Lawyer would have a game like this. He's had so many opportunities to do this kind of thing. When people sell out on Ross-Ade, they got to leave somebody open. And there have been opportunities for somebody, whether it's been Fletcher Lawyer, Ethan Morton, whoever the four-man has been, starting to just make a bunch of threes and turn a game on its side. And it really hasn't happened to this point. Finally, tonight, it did. Fletcher Lawyer has that game. I've been, kind of screaming into the ether all along this season that this is coming. He's going to have a game like this. He's going to have a game like this, I promise you. He's going to have a game like this. And the way he's been shooting in Big Ten play, prior to tonight, he was 9 of 18. Since Big Ten play resumed, obviously he's made a couple of enormous shots over that span. He made some big shots against Penn State, too, even though that game didn't really come down to the final minutes. He made some really big arm's-length shots to keep Penn State from making sure they weren't going to make a run. This was his breakout game. This was the game that was bound to come eventually, and he'll have more of these this season. He'll have a lot of these for however long his career lasts at Purdue, and he sure had one tonight. And what surprised me a little bit was that when he made all those open threes, Nebraska didn't change a whole lot defensively. I figured when that time came that Purdue, whether it's Lawyer, whoever, made all those early threes, it would loosen the defense up for Edey, and then he would go off. That never really happened. You could count on one hand probably the number of touches Ross-Ade got within the framework of offense in this game. He went and got it himself a bunch of times, ended up with his productivity, but Nebraska did largely keep the ball away from him, at least in the framework of Purdue's offense. So that it didn't really loosen things up for him, but this was kind of the game where Purdue sort of flexed its muscles from three to start a game. And that kind of leads me into what my first two talking points were for this video. One was Fletcher Lawyer. This was bound to happen. He's going to go down I try to avoid hyperbole, as you guys know, I hope. But I don't see any way around this guy being one of the most prolific three-point shooters in the history of this school. And there's been a lot of them. But the very moment, you have to remember, I cover all these guys in AAU and grassroots. I see them play in high school. I see them play in the summers. And the very first time I saw Fletcher Loyer play, it was a COVID year game in Fort Wayne against some, at that point, the people who run these events just had to get anybody willing to play or anybody who could play. Nobody was traveling. So this was bad competition. It was overmatched competition. But just the way Fletcher Loyer shot the ball, the way he set up his shots, the way he knew how to get in position for his shots, clearly this guy was something special as a shooter. And it was no coincidence. It was no surprise to me whatsoever that this was a guy Purdue was on before I even knew who he was. And he's going to go down as one of the best to ever come through this school. He's such a complete shooter. He's a three-point shooter. He's a pull-up shooter. He's crafty. He's clever. He makes every type of shot. He moves well without the ball. He's good at creating space for himself. He doesn't need a lot of room. He's fearless. He has no confidence issues whatsoever. He's just going to be really good. And he's really good also at not just living and dying by the three. He's great at playing off closeouts. He's great at getting in the lane. He's great at making plays for others off of his own, the threat of his shot, things like that. Just a great shooter in every sense of the term. And again, I think you're going to see a lot more games like this season, but also next season, however long his career at Purdue lasts. And tonight was validation of that opinion I've held since he was a junior in high school, and as he first moved to Fort Wayne and was playing against nobody in those COVID year AAU events. He's just going to be a really big-time offensive player for Purdue, and he's still got room for growth. But it was only a matter of time before, that 30% shooting on high volume from the non-conference season translated to much more efficient shooting. Normally it's the other way around. Normally it's, especially a young player, they shoot better against the bad defenses of non-conference play, and then against the better defenses of Big Ten play and the better preparation, the better scouting, things like that, things take a step backward. For Loyer, very interestingly, it's been the other way around. I think he had to acclimate a little bit to the college game. I think he had to get his legs a little bit under him around the holidays. But since Big Ten play, he's taken off. After that Rutgers game, he's completely taken off, and that's not normal. But nothing about what he or Braden Smith this season as freshmen have done for Purdue have been normal. So expect the unexpected, possible, redefined, the ways I keep putting this. But just a big-time game for Fletcher Loyer, and confidence is never going to be an issue for that kid, but he should be teaming with it right now. He better start planning for the Sasha Stefanovic treatment now, because he's had that game now where people are going to see, hey, this guy can turn this game on his head if we don't stop him. So he's going to start getting held more. He's going to start getting bumped more. Maybe that opens things up a little bit more for Ross-Ade. Maybe balance kind of takes hold a little bit here and Purdue's a better offensive team just because of Loyer's presence, because of the threat he has now shown, not just against Nebraska today, but the second half against Ohio State, the entirety of the Penn State game. People got to start game planning for Fletcher Loyer now if they weren't already, and that's a really exciting thing for Purdue moving forward, if you ask me. The other thing I wanted to mention here is about Ross-Ade. Like, as I've mentioned before, and again, Painter scoops me on a point. This was my talking point. This was my take. Painter mentions it in the press conference before I can write it. Not cool. But I think I wrote this a little bit after the Ohio State game. Like, a lot of great players are going to feel that pressure to score. They're going to feel that pressure to take that shot when it might not be the best shot for their team, because they're the guy our backward basketball culture nowadays said ought to be taking that shot. First Take would be saying, Ross-Ade needs to be taking that shot if First Take ever talked about Purdue. Thank God they don't. But Ross-Ade just keeps such a level head about him. I mean, he made the right basketball play at Ohio State. In a game like this, where again, he touches the ball within the framework of an offense probably a half a dozen times tops. Doesn't get his normal looks for the second game out of 2 against Nebraska. Doesn't get frustrated. Doesn't start just forcing stuff. Doesn't take wild shots. A lot of great players, a lot of All-Americans would make damn certain that they're ending every single game with their 20 points or whatever it is, or they're worried about getting theirs. And it's not always a selfish thing. It's more of a responsibility thing at times, too. A player might think, my team needs me to do this, so I have to do this. Zach-Edey has never once shown any indication of feeling that sort of burden. I thought his comment after Florida State, whether this gained any traction or not, about not caring about who gets rebounds as long as Purdue gets the rebounds, for a player who occupies immense gravity around the basket, I think that was a really telling comment about his mindset. His comments after this game, too, about not caring about his scoring as long as Purdue's scoring. Sometimes guys just say stuff because they know it's the right thing to say, that they don't always mean it. But there's something really genuine and really level-headed about everything that Zach-Edey has done and been and said this season that really makes you believe it. And that's an immense compliment to him as a player. And as I've said over and over again after these games, the tone he sets for this team, with his attitude, with his demeanor, with his approach, with his personal consistency, with his basketball consistency, is just beyond reproach. And it is one of the biggest driving forces behind this team's success so far this season. This team has belied its age, it has belied its experience level, and none of this is possible without the tones that Zach-Edey sets for this basketball team. And I can't say that enough. I will say it over and over again all season long, as if I've not said it enough to this point. But for Zach-Edey to come out here in a game where a lot of guys would get mad, they'd get frustrated, they'd get impatient, they'd just turn around and truck somebody, for him to just come out and just kind of go with the flow and get his 12 points, 13 rebounds, 8 drawn fouls and 4 blocks, and be cool with it, that speaks volumes about his demeanor as a basketball player. It speaks volumes about why this team is successful, and you can't give him enough credit for that. So that's kind of the only 2 things I really wanted to talk about from this game. It was Nebraska on a Friday night, so it kind of is what it is. So Purdue will be happy to not see Tominaga anymore, because that guy can't miss against Purdue. And so Purdue will say farewell to Tominaga, barring another Big Ten tournament meeting against Nebraska. I doubt that's going to happen. Figuring Purdue's a top seed, we'll have a double bye, or a top seed, not the top seed. There is a difference. We'll have the double bye, probably will not see Nebraska. So farewell Tominaga. It's been real. And with all that being said, once again, my Recruits Notes app message on Twitter. With that being said, from Purdue's 73-55 win over Nebraska, Purdue's 3rd straight Big Ten win. This is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reading. Thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And thank you once again to the Purdue Club Hotel for your promotional support. We appreciate it as always. I will talk to you guys again on Monday evening from East Lansing, Michigan, after Purdue plays a suddenly hot Michigan State team in what will be an enormously consequential game for the Big Ten race. Purdue has an opportunity here to maybe build some cachet early in this Big Ten season while everybody else cuts each other up. I don't know, but the road games at places like Michigan State are really big in that regard, so it'll be interesting to see what happens Monday. And I will talk to you then. So thanks, everybody.